So one obvious question for the capitalists in the room is, Sam, Greg, entrepreneurs, capitalists, I'm sure there are ways to incentivize these guys out of Microsoft. Are they doing this for it, but it doesn't seem that obvious. So are they doing this to make money? Are they doing this to get even with OpenAI? Is it that they believe in this mission of AGI so much that they don't care about money, quite frankly,
I
and
think that
ultimately
just
want to
partnering with
control?
Microsoft.
I think it goes something like this. They sort of ran out of time with the negotiations and everything. They couldn't bring back Sam to OpenAI. There's like a talent hemorrhaging that's happening, and then there's all these brand issues, and there's all this stock ramification for Microsoft, and so this is like a sort of a save. Okay, we're going to create a new group around you. The OpenAI team members that want to leave and continue working with Sam and Greg can join that team. And in the meantime, we're gonna continue to work through the legal channels to figure out how to take back OpenAI. So it's sort of a band-aid. It seems like, at least that's my initial impression.
I don't know if you guys saw the Microsoft
Hey,
Ignite event.
sorry, quick. Martin, can you add Balaji back?
Yeah.
While you do that, I was going to mention that the Microsoft Ignite event, they showed a new chip, which they said they partnered with OpenAI. Mhm.
It's the right shelling point. It's like hitting the fire alarm. Everybody runs out of the building, and where do they assemble? Well, this is the obvious place to assemble. So they have enough domain knowledge in the heads of all the people moving over there to reconstruct a lot of it, if not all of it. And it might take, I don't know what percentage of the talent. And then the thing is, with Microsoft helping, of course, this is a mess. It's still a huge mess. But and it remains to be seen how many committed EAs there are at OpenAI. But they could launch it as Bing AI. They could spin it out as a separate company. And then Microsoft at any time could just cut off compute to OpenAI and offer some migration plan. There's probably something in the contract where Satya could just do that. And it'd still be a hit. You lose 100 million users. There's still damage in this transition, but maybe it's something where they can recover faster.
Yeah, I feel like the data center gains here are not to be forgotten. I think, yeah, this seems like definitely shortens the recovery.
Just wanted to extend an invite to Mark Andreessen if he wants to come up. Stunning news here. And again, makes you wonder what the motivations here are. Is it to be the Einstein, to go down in history as the instantiator of AGI? It seems to me that both men are very wealthy, probably not interested too much in commercial opportunity running a subsidiary of Microsoft, but seems to me this is about ego. What do you guys think?
I personally don't feel like too much ego is involved, but I don't know. You guys have probably more business experience than me.
I think if it was ego, he probably would just start his own thing, right?
Yeah, I think the question is just literally where can we go to train GPT-5? Answer, Microsoft.
I think if you go ahead, George. Sorry, welcome to the space.
Thank you. And you know,
hey, George.
thank you. To the EAs, they acted like fucking children, and they get exactly what they deserve. And this is why we don't have new companies, and this is why Microsoft gets power. And look, I like Microsoft. I like Microsoft a whole lot more than the children who staged a coup and destroyed OpenAI. But I'm glad everyone comes back together nicely, and we'll get GPT-5, and it won't be open source. But you know what? There's open source may be the best, but if I can pay $20 and I can use it, I'm also pretty happy. It's these people who have a nonprofit that is not open source that makes no sense at all. How did they think this was okay?
So you're absolutely right. I just wanted to push back. I do think it's about ego because starting the new code tomorrow is taking a big L. You are starting from scratch. You got to go raise billions. You got to go hire everyone. It's going to be a pain. Going to Microsoft, you are now technically the boss of OpenAI. You run that contract. You can sue them for breach, et cetera, et cetera. And Satya is giving them probably a bankroll to productize whatever they want. It just still seems weird to me to to want to be running a sub at Microsoft. That does not seem like Sam Altman.
Hold on, Martin, just quickly, I want to add something. Since we don't know what the Microsoft OpenAI commercial contract looks like, it's possible that they can't sub-license the OpenAI technology. So Sam joining Microsoft could be very well a temporary, get direct access to OpenAI technology immediately shortcut. If you kind of look at it from like an EA standpoint, ends justify the means, it might make sense to join Microsoft versus building a new co.
I agree. Yeah, actually, one of the pivotal things I think that people are maybe forgetting is during the Microsoft Ignite event, they did actually announce, the Maya 100 chip, which is a new custom AI accelerator chip that Microsoft has been co-developing with OpenAI specifically for, accelerating pretty much OpenAI workloads and AI models. So the fact that they already have this hardware available, it's made by Microsoft, it's being deployed and built out by Microsoft. I mean, who knows how long they spent developing these custom chips, and it just makes sense that, hey, now Sam Altman can pretty much be the head of the research or new research lab or whatever, doing cutting edge tech and research at Microsoft and utilize that.
For what it's worth, I think Sam will still start these other companies.
Right.
I don't think that's going to stop him from starting these other companies.
I'm sure also, doing this was part
I totally agree. I think this is an interim move. I think that it shows that Microsoft and Sam are a unit and not OpenAI. It's a message to OpenAI. It's a message to Microsoft's investors. And also for Sam, unlike starting a new co, it gives him immediate access to OpenAI's technology. Which if you're going to get 10 to 30% of OpenAI's employees move over the next week, they'll be able to immediately get back to work.
In the very beginning of this space, we were talking about the litigation consequences in terms of, lawsuits from employees and OpenAI shareholders. I'm curious with this new development, what people are in the space are thinking from a litigation perspective. Are you going to have OpenAI now suing Microsoft, for trade secrets or stealing talent or whatever you want to call it?
No, I don't see that.
Yeah, I doubt it. One interesting hypothesis, which I couldn't exclude, is that Sam Altman will be the new CEO of Microsoft. Given what Paul Graham said about Sam's term and his ability to lead, I don't think that's crazy. Satya has been in the seat for a while. He's done an amazing job, and passing a baton could make sense.
Yeah, it could totally make sense. When Nat Friedman was running GitHub, they were actually grooming him as a Satya kind of successor. So I think they've been thinking about that for a while.
I think Satya only 55 though. I feel like he has another 10 or 15 years.
Yeah,
I doubt it. And I trust
You-
Satya with the governance of this stuff way more than I trust the other people, right? Like you're really concerned about who's going to have control over these AI things? The little boardroom coup that was staged gives you zero faith in those people, right? You want those people to have control over, if you take them at their words that this is the destiny of humanity, right? That's not who you want, right? I don't even think Sam Altman, Nat Friedman, I trust Satya a lot more than both of them. I'm very happy with the outcome that I came here, and I don't think it's anything more than it is. I think it's really, what do the people in OpenAI want? Training GPT-5. Where's the best place to go do it? Microsoft. What's Microsoft going to do with it? Sell it and make $20 a month off many people. Pretty good outcome.
By the way, we got to give some props.
Yeah,
Satya Nadella pulling this off. At the end of the game, he's winning this game of chess, and that's real startup CEO level skills to pull that together and react that fast.
Absolutely.
Right? It's ridiculous, actually. Anyway, just wanted to say he doesn't toot his own horn that much, but like the turnaround he's led at Microsoft now, it's pretty impressive. Anyway,
I agree with that. This is like 9-dimensional chess at this point, and Satya won.
The breaking news, it's possible that Sam Altman has been fired from Microsoft for not being candid enough with Satya Nadella.
Yeah. But no, on a note about the terms and conditions for how Microsoft has the agreement, everything up until AGI, And I mean, OpenAI already has a definition of AGI, like pretty much a lot lower in capabilities than what most people's definition is. So we're talking about something that just can do something like be able to do at least 50% of entry level white collar worker jobs, for example, to like a reasonable effectiveness. But obviously, we're probably a good ways away from that. But the fact that Microsoft doesn't have any IP rights or any access to post AGI technology, but now if Sam Altman and Greg Brockman are in the future within the next few years, the next decades or so, doing AGI development within Microsoft Research, then Microsoft would have access to that post AGI technology. So in a way, this is actually maybe kind of a better deal for Microsoft than the original OpenAI deal.
I also honestly would not be surprised if this was like a 3 or 4 year play to get Sam and Greg back into OpenAI and to make it solely a for-profit or something similar. Like, this seems to be like an hour by hour thing where both sides are like using any leverage that they can have to extend it back to their side.
Yeah.
And this
yeah.
gives Microsoft
Yeah, but
time to regain control over the situation.
I think
who's Microsoft? Who at Microsoft is going to be managing the OpenAI relationship starting tomorrow? I mean, it looks like it's going to be Sam and Greg probably.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Now we did. Oh my God.
No,
Can
this,
you?
and this is what I'm saying is that this is about ego. This is about saying, "Oh, you think you fired us? Well, here we are again. We're your boss now, and by the way, we think you're in breach. So, maybe we'll sue you and or do this or that." And I think it'll be interesting. We are told that there will be more major announcements the next day or two. So, very interesting. This is almost like the most amazing movie you could never write this script.
Yeah, one quick thing to add. I know I brought up the litigation thing before about the possibility that OpenAI might sue Microsoft for poaching talent. The other interesting kind of semi-litigative aspect of this is going to be the Microsoft OpenAI partnership agreement, which we already know just from what they've published publicly is extraordinarily messy and complex and strange and kind of unique. I would not be surprised if lawyers and people from both sides are going through that line by line, word by word, figuring out every single way that they can fuck over the other person, whether that's the AGI declaration or how the compute agreement is managed. Like, I think there's a lot of interesting possibilities there, and this is still probably just the 5th or 6th inning of like a 9-inning story.
I think can't compete with Microsoft lawyers. It's pretty hard.
The big question,
George,
is
go ahead.
how broad is Microsoft's ownership over OpenAI IP, right? If Microsoft's ownership of OpenAI IP extends to the source code, great. You all have your jobs back. You're at a new organization. We have all the code. Continue your work. And, all the D cells can stay at OpenAI. It's a dead organization.
Yeah, I think that we could still see Sam make a rival. I don't think this forecloses a consumer app. I don't think it forecloses a SaaS app, an API service. I don't think Sam's done here. I think this is just one step of what's going to be a number of interesting chess moves.
Yeah,
It's where the talent goes next week. And if all the talent goes to Microsoft,
100%.
Google's over. Google.
Yeah.
This is not just the end of OpenAI. This is the end of Google in 5 years, right?
I
we will actually use Bing.
I think you're 100% right. And it's what we were talking about when Jason was here, which is that a great company isn't made by a technical lead. It's not made by one great person. It's made by that person's ability to bring people into the company and get them to be more productive, raise the level, raise the talent within the company, and get them inspired and working harder. That's what Sam was able to do. He was able to do something with a few hundred people and not a lot of money that no company could do with billions of dollars and thousands of people. He's the talent of a generation. And ultimately, what he does next will be very interesting. We don't know the full story. We know that he's somehow going to join Microsoft, at least maybe part-time. We don't know, but it'll be very funny when they have their bi-monthly, if you ever done a deal with like a big pharma like I have or something like that, you have these like bi-weekly steering committee meetings with your partners. So having Sam show up to that will be quite funny.
Yeah, so I have a question for you, George. So yesterday I was kind of asking around, engaging people's views on if Karpathy would leave and if he would join Sam and Greg Brockman. And I think you said something to the effect, George, of I think you said 70% chance you think that Karpathy would leave. And I'm just wondering now, like, do you still think it's 70% chance that he would leave and join Sam and Greg Brockman over at Microsoft? Or do you kind of have, different possibilities you think now?
I'll raise it to 90.
Okay,
And
perfect.
I mean, look, if Sam and Greg legitimately plan on joining Microsoft and building GPT-5 there, I really respect that decision. And I do not think it's an ego decision. I think it's actually a decision for the best case development of AI and the best continuation of the company.
I guess the question is, though, do we think that they'll just try making the same thing that they were previously working on when they got fired? Or are they going to try and maybe approach a different angle and not exactly try to do the exact same thing that OpenAI is doing?
Oh, copy it exactly. Copy it exactly. Build Bing Chat, and everyone will start using Bing Chat. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I
Again,
agree. They need a Chat GPT competitor to get the consumer mindshare, and then they also need to make sure that Microsoft has at least parity with OpenAI's developer platform for
Yeah,
API services.
I think it's really interesting.
That would be the most important thing. It's the
Yeah.
most important thing because we already know that OpenAI, under the leadership of the king of D cells, will not release anything that's more advanced than GPT-4 to the public.
Yeah, I think, like, okay, for Microsoft research, the thing I'm very curious about is in terms of small models, and I know a lot of people don't really care about small models, but like there's things like Phi 1, Phi 2 that was just, announced at Microsoft Ignite recently. And this is stuff that Microsoft research puts out that actually helps kind of accelerate the state of the art in open source. And I'm wondering if like that type of state of the art small model acceleration is going to be made open source and continued to be like advanced upon under Sam Altman and Greg Brockman. And if that is the case, I think that's super cool. And that'll like really gain respect from the EA community.
I wonder if joining the mothership, kind of the evil empire that Microsoft represents to at least an old generation of hackers, is a financial move as well. And I say this because, having followed Warren Buffett my whole life, one of the questions I've always had is how do you incentivize somebody to join a $100 billion company or $200 billion company? And what I learned over the years is that you can make a fortune at Berkshire Hathaway if you have Warren's ear, and you can get a percentage of profits even. So people have made $5 billion working at Berkshire Hathaway. I wonder what the deal is here, because if I'm Satya, I'm telling Sam, you want to make a phone? We'll make your phone. You want to make new chips? We'll make new chips. Your ambition is the sun. We have the capital, we have the people, we have the distribution to help you make the sun. And I think it's a perfect home in a lot of ways for Sam if they give him free reign and a big budget. And the same way Buffett allocates capital to his best, in essence, private equity and hedge fund type investors, I think if you're Satya, you're sitting here saying, look, I got a huge balance sheet. I have a huge, product pipeline and a huge number of people. What's the best way to leverage this? Let me get the most ambitious and kind of exciting entrepreneur in the world and have him work for me. And let me make sure I incentivize him in a way that makes sense for Microsoft and for him. And, again, coup of the century for Satya, especially if he can keep Sam's activities to Microsoft and not, this being one of, like, say, 10 things that Sam does in the future.
Yeah, and I think an actual very interesting point that Microsoft has is they're one of the very, very few companies in the world that literally have one of the world's most popular operating systems. And I feel like that's actually a point that could definitely get, at least even Karpathy has talked about, having very deeply integrated AI systems within operating systems. If he quits OpenAI right now, goes to work, under Greg and Sam over at this new Microsoft research division, that might be the perfect fit to where he can literally have an impact on, let's say, maybe the next version of Windows or anything like that, and actually make an impact that way.
Yeah, Patrick just tweeted that the big winner is Bing.
Now, I think it's a lot deeper than that. I think the next version of Windows.
Just to interrupt real quick, we got some breaking news. Will Depew, a friend and young man who has joined OpenAI has tweeted a magnet torrent link. Could this be the leak that we're thinking of?
Wait, unironically?
Or is
tweeted a link.
No, I
Yeah,
think it's
you're getting
it's
rickrolled.
a joke. It's a joke.
Phew, okay, just the stakes are large, and it's not impossible that OpenAI, in an act of implosion, becomes a truly open source company.
Who
You know, I saw this joke. I saw this joke an hour ago.
Who's getting rickrolled?
Exactly.
Well, it all starts as a joke until someone actually does it.
Yeah, Llama started, right? Llama started on 4chan. I would not be totally shocked. It would be the leak of the century if we see weights and or architecture and or other, key documents leak. If I'm an OpenAI insider that just lost a couple $2 billion, it's certainly tempting. It's also very dangerous and illegal to do, so I wouldn't suggest it. But
it also got released as a torrent Mistral model. A lot of people forgot that.
Probably not worth it. We'll get Llama 3 soon. It's gonna be pretty good.
Well, the question isn't who's putting the torrent link up right now, but the question is how many people copied it to an SSD and have it in a shoebox at their house, right?
I'd say that, to take the Snowden page, even if one person has done that, it's no doubt that China's got full copy of it. This is one of these things that's not great for American sort of security and stuff like that. It's, again, if you believe these things are national security interests, I'd be very surprised if these weights aren't moving.
China has the schematics for the F-35 too. Like,
that's part
yeah,
of the course.
I suppose.
I thought the F-35 was open source.
They also have all the source code for like iOS and Windows and everything else. Like, debate. Like, by the way, when I used to work at Apple, like I was very careful to delete all my data, and I won't name names, but like I have talked to folks that literally have like, and I'm not going to say which company, but have like the source code to like things that have never leaked. That you go, wow, that must be like really secure. But no, it's just like on their MacBook Pro, and they leave the company, and they literally find stuff on a USB drive years later. So like, our entire tech industry is not secure.
Like, there's no security at all. Everyone knows this. I'm probably still capable of writing browser exploits. You'd never detect it, and I can pull everything off your computer, right? And this is like, compare this to the Chinese state.
What a beast.
It's my point is it's easy. Like, there is no computer security really. I hope everyone kind of knows this.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not like somebody one time did a thing called jailbreaking on an iPhone,
Well, I mean, it used to be way easier. It is a lot harder now. Like, the value of these exploits has gone up from, 10 to 100,000 to like 1 to 10 million, but still, it's $1 million. Like, who cares?
For sure, yeah. Speaking of operating systems, though, before the Will Depew thing, we're kind of on the tangent of, like, do you guys really think Bing is kind of the real golden egg for Microsoft right now? Or I think it's Windows 12. I think it's like Windows as a whole, or maybe not Windows 12. I don't know what they would call it, but the Windows platform as a whole, obviously, just licensing that out.
Dear God, please just give me an API. I don't want a Microsoft account.
But you guys get what I'm saying, though, like, right? Like, how much they can actually rebuild Windows in the future, maybe not in the next year, maybe not in the next 2 years, but in the relatively near future. And I think that'd be a way bigger deal than Bing.
Yeah, and don't forget hardware, right? And it's obviously Azure is the first winner, but remember that Sam has Satya's year. I think he got Microsoft to invest several $100 million in his nuclear startup that he invested in, right? So I think that this could be a really beautiful, number two, basically, at Microsoft, where, again, this guy's so ambitious. How do you move the needle at a $2 trillion company? There are not many people who can even put their mind in that state of thinking through products that can do that. Sam's one of the few people who could do that. Again, is this for glory? Is this for money? Is it for both? Is it for clout? It's really hard to tell. It'll be fascinating to see more details come out. Again, we're promised that something big is coming very soon.
Martin, quick question for you. Prediction I'm curious about. Do you think Microsoft opens up or down tomorrow?
That I don't know. I've put my trader hat on, but I do think this is a coup, a hell of a coup, because ultimately, I don't know that Microsoft sort of had the best deal with OpenAI anyway. They basically are trading compute for equity. That deal sucks now, right? It's sort of like, irrelevant, but Microsoft kind of wanted a seat at the table. So Microsoft still, Satya said something nice about, OpenAI and wanting to sort of like continue the relationship and stuff like that. Again, somebody mentioned Microsoft's legal department, which is one of the most formidable in the world. I still don't think, I still think it's possible that OpenAI is in breach and that, their compute could get cut off. And Sam's revenge as now a senior Microsoft executive could be, the sword of Damocles hanging over the new management team over there. So, I think that Microsoft has just secured the two best entrepreneurs in the world, in essence. And ultimately, that's a great thing for Microsoft. And, to the extent they bring that institutional knowledge to grab the people, that they need to their team, that's even better. So I think it opens up maybe even a substantial way. Remember, 1% is substantial for Microsoft since their company is so large. But they secured and stabilized the crazy relationship with OpenAI. It looks like OpenAI will be solvent if Microsoft wants it to be. And then they got the best guy out of it. So the worst case scenario was Sam going off and creating his own company, right? That's sort of a disaster for Microsoft, where it's like, oh boy, now this is all splintering out of control. And now they sort of got the talent and brought him 100% in house. I think that's, a big win for them.
Well,
Yeah,
and
I do
Martin,
want to make a little
they're
bit of
gonna.
a correction. Sorry, I was just wanting to make a correction real quick on something I said earlier. So remember when I was saying about how Sam Altman had the quote of 4 past breakthroughs, something that happened very recently. So I was saying that he said that quote like a few weeks ago, but apparently he actually said that quote at an event literally the day before he got fired. So that makes it even a little bit more interesting. But yeah, that's all I want to say. You can go ahead, Chris.
Martin, I was going to say, like, you're absolutely right, but and also, you're looking at 10, at least 10, maybe up to 50% of OpenAI will be joining Microsoft in less than a week. Let alone whatever residual percent, and it's going to be the better half of the company.
Yeah, absolutely the better half.
And so another way to like spin this is that Satya effectively acquired OpenAI. He got the best. He got the leaders. He's gonna get the best quarter to half, like 25 to 50% of the company, and because they have not achieved AGI yet, they already have access to OpenAI's IP, right? So like this is essentially an acquisition of the better half of OpenAI, and also from like a based perspective, is that the EA culture at OpenAI probably can't be extinguished at this point. And so Satya effectively acquired OpenAI for free and removed all the D cells at the same time. It's actually a pretty good move.
That's actually a really good point. Yeah, the last point that he removed all the G cells without having to do any work. Yeah.
He still may not have complete access to the IP of OpenAI.
Well, we know for sure that their models are running on their server, so
well, we also know
they have access to the base models.
Well, remember what I said earlier. A great company is not, what the assets they have today. It's the assets of their people. These amazing engineers. Some of them may not want to work for Microsoft, mind you, but I think most of them will go along with Sam. And I think that it's the people that made this miracle happen in the first place that could possibly make the next one happen. Again, there's also such things as one-trick ponies. Just because we got the LLM revolution from OpenAI doesn't mean we're going to get the AGI revolution from OpenAI. There's plenty of companies that were unable to do that. Intel brought us the microprocessor revolution. They did not bring us the GPU revolution. So, there's no guarantee of anything. But it is rather remarkable.
I don't think we need another revolution. I think it's fine. I think that let's just continue. GPT-2. Remember when GPT-2? I like that before. Remember when GPT-2 was scaring people, and now you can run a GPT-2 on a phone? Like, we don't need a revolution.
GPT-2 sucks.
I know. We don't need a revolution. We need GPT-2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, just keep going. Like
All right, we
it
have
doesn't.
new. I
What
believe
comes after 7?
we have some new stuff. Just bear with me. Sorry to interrupt you guys. He says, Satya Nadella, I'm super excited to have you join as CEO of this new group, Sam, setting a new pace for innovation. We've learned a lot over the years on how to give founders and innovators space to build independent entities and cultures within Microsoft, such as GitHub, Mojang, and LinkedIn. And I'm looking forward to having you do the same. So this is basically Satya giving a blank check to Sam and saying, go do a startup within Microsoft. And I gotta think that's going to include some equity and direct payment profit participation, not just run this startup within Microsoft and get a wagey kind of compensation package. I think this is more like we'll give you the economics of that you would get within a startup. The same kind of thing, except just all in-house at Microsoft. And this is the kind of thing, again, someone like Steve Cohen often gives to people at his hedge fund. He says, don't start your own hedge fund. You are going to charge, say, 1 in 20 for your hedge fund. You can make 1 in 20, or I'll give you 2 in 25 to stay here and manage all the money you can for me. And forget outside clients. You don't need them. I'm going to make everything simple for you. And that kind of thing is very attractive. So for Sam, he gets the same thing. I'm going to give you 20% of this entity, or through synthetic kind of phantom equity. I'm going to give you all the resources of Microsoft you need. Could you get that on your own startup? No. Why would you do your own startup when you can have your startup within us?
I
It's
just
kind
want
of
to
like what
point
DeepMind.
out. Oh,
Mhm.
sorry. Just like a structural thing is Microsoft, for those that are not familiar, has business units, and they generally have a general manager, which is essentially the CEO, and they have their own P&L, and they use shared capital from the company. The fact that if Satya is saying Sam is CEO, he's essentially like if Sam was GM, he would be CEO of that business unit. But by saying he's CEO, it likely means Sam has negotiated a different structure. So maybe it's possible we're going to see something more like how Cruise spun out of General Motors. They got acquired by General Motors, and then they got spun out, and became a majority owned by GM, but operated completely independently. Maybe it's possible that this is going to sort of start that way, or perhaps start as a completely independent division of Microsoft, with Microsoft funding it, but with the plans to spin it off. Also, given that Cruise's CEO and founder Kyle left earlier today, not to add a conspiracy theory, but of all the founders that are connected well into Y Combinator and likely know Sam pretty well, that have done complicated corporate startup things where you run a startup as part of a corporation. That's the guy, and he quit today. So
he also worked at Twitch, though.
Why does that matter?
Because Emmett's now the CEO of OpenAI.
Who cares about Emmett? He's a D-cell like doomer.
No, I just mean the Kyle being a wild card could be him going to either side. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know. I don't know Kyle. I know folks that know him really well, including folks that served on the boards of my companies, and they have like mad respect for him.
I feel like this is an interesting situation where it does definitely remind me, maybe this is obvious, but this is kind of what I was suspecting as soon as I heard that they would be doing something under Microsoft, which I feel like this is kind of to Microsoft what DeepMind has been to Google. And, hopefully they actually ship, unlike Gemini and Google. But this seems like kind of, in a way, a direct competitor to DeepMind and Google, if that makes sense. And, both trillion-dollar companies, both actually are also doing operating systems. You have Microsoft Windows, and then you have Google Android, Chrome OS. And it seems like it'll be some pretty interesting competition these next few years.
We'll see
how much of a competition it really is.
Right. Can Sam actually coexist with an Azure bureaucracy? Right. I mean, I think it's one thing to draw structures on pieces of paper. It's another thing to fill out TPS reports for your Azure GM bosses. It's
yeah, I think this is like Sam has a potential here for going just full Super Saiyan and just ripping a hole in the org chart. I don't know. We'll see.
Does anybody want to put a likelihood on whether or not Sam and Greg will ship before Google ships with Gemini?
great question.
Oh, I think they will.
That's a
I
great
think they
question.
will. I mean,
I think like 50-50.
they clearly have
Pretty uncertain about
access
that.
to. People are skeptical of Microsoft, but Microsoft has been shipping uh, fine-tuned, maybe beyond that, versions of GPT-4 before OpenAI has. They shipped DALL-E 3, and GPT-4 prior to OpenAI. Like this is not new. So like Microsoft clearly has access to the IP and is relatively agile. So like, Sam's going to get access to this as well. And then also like I said earlier, a very large portion of the OpenAI team is likely to move to this new group.
Yeah, and remember, Microsoft's AI research team is bigger than the entire company at OpenAI. Microsoft's done an amazing job with DeepSpeed. I found a bug in DeepSpeed, okay, and a PR went up fixing the bug. I didn't tell anybody at Microsoft. I made a tweet, and they literally patched it and put it into, through a new version number out. This is a great company. There's a reason they're the biggest software company in the world. And I think that, we should see better and bigger things. Fee is another example. We were talking about Fee earlier. I know LDJ knows Fee well. So I would not be surprised if Microsoft, of course, has reserved their own rights to make their own LLMs and field them. And again, remember, when Llama 2 came out, who was it by Mark Zuckerberg's side? It was Satya saying, we're going to be a Llama 2 purveyor, we're going to be a GPT purveyor, and very soon we're going to be a SAM GPT purveyor. And I think that, OpenAI will just be one of many choices that Microsoft is fielding through Azure.
Yeah, speaking of Llama, actually, that's some news. Just in the past couple days, Mark Zuckerberg apparently disbanded the responsible AI safety team at Meta. So, I mean, it's pretty much a wild card right now, and looks super bullish for Llama 3 in the short term.
Yeah,
good for him.
This has been a great.
I saw that.
I'm out of here.
I saw that from Satya, where he said he was going to use put all the models in Azure. Azure's actually good. Like we use it at Comma. It's good. I'm very bullish on the future of that, and like you just put all the models in there. You have all the foundation models as cloud services, and yeah, Satya wins.
I think you have to be bullish on Microsoft after tonight. I mean, they're the largest software company in the world. Like, man, if that's the truth, your intuition would actually be that they move extremely slow. And the fact that this whole agreement was probably negotiated in the last 6 hours is fucking crazy. Like 7 or 8 hours ago, we all thought Sam was going to be reinstated as CEO. The board kept their cards super close to their chest, announced Emmett Shear at the last minute. I mean, the fact that this has all been done in the last 4 or 5 hours is like absolutely insane. And then also from a leadership perspective, the fact that Satya is even taking another chance on the space and on Sam is pretty insane. I think every other Fortune 500 company would look at the situation. They'd be like, this is fucked. The AI industry is fucked. I'm permanently jaded. I'm never investing in this space again, like permanently swearing off of it.
I think that's true, but also I do think that it's not Sam's fault. I think it's very clear at this point, and also I'm sure Satya has way more information than us. This is a decel takeover of OpenAI. Like this is like this is like the destruction of Silicon Valley's fastest growing private company of all time. Almost $100 billion of value, potentially with a year or two of growth, $1 trillion company, decapitated by effective altruists, and is literally being staffed with people that are intent to slow it down and get rid of all of the advantages it has, including its key employees, and slow down its rate of progress, the 12 to 18-month lead it has over competitors. Like, this makes no sense. Like, this is unprecedented. Like, no Fortune 500 company has had a partnership where, in the mainstream media, as you open New York Times, where the story shows up, where, a key partner of a technological revolution has been blown up by essentially the Unabomber. Like, this is unprecedented. Like, this is not Satya is like the GOAT, right? But like, this is like
Absolutely.
not normal times.
No, it's crazy because the only thing I can think of it as self-described business historian is Enron and WorldCom, which were outright frauds that were inevitably going to collapse. This is a willful destruction of $90 billion. I'm going to rack my brain for some sample that's in there of a willful destruction of capital, but I can't think of something this big. I mean, this is, like you said, so unprecedented. There's going to be new words to describe this phenomenon.
No, it's so important that we point this point out, right? Because like in every other situation, people would be watching in horror as the company fell apart. And by the way, remember why people are horrified by Enron? The shareholders lost everything. Their employees lost everything. It's happening to OpenAI. The tender offers blowing up. The employees are going to lose everything. Even the shitty employees that are decels are the valuation of the company is going to plummet. The investors are getting fucked. It's the same thing. Martin's totally right. It's just like WorldCom. It's just like Enron. The only difference is the framing. The only difference is that it's these EAs in this sort of pseudo nonprofit structure. But that's the hard power. But the soft power is that if this company and organization, OpenAI, ran like any other company in human history, even like the East India Trading Company, if it just ran like any other company with the incentives that we're used to, this would be a massive fraud. And the OpenAI board better hope that the structure that they have in place will preserve them, because the litigation and the lawsuit and the loss of narrative, which they've already lost, by the way, they've lost the war there. It's coming for them. And, as Martin knows, like fraud is not it seems like an obvious thing until it's not.
So is it fraud to not be a capitalist? They're just not capitalists. Is that fraud?
Maybe.
I think that the SBF trial has shown that, something I've known personally as well, which is that when it comes to the DOJ, they define it as like really anything. And here you have a board that said, we're going to sell you shares, whatever, that arrangement was. And, you're going to buy these shares. If you're Thrive Capital, you're sinking $100 million into this. And, you have some expectation that there's a chance these shares will do well. And, getting rug pulled from that is to me pretty close to fraud. And, I'd be pretty mad if I were these investors. There's nobody who has huge exposure to OpenAI but the employees. And again, this is like self-immolation that, we've really never seen in the history of mankind. Patrick.
I was just going to say the weird quirk here as to whether or not it's fraud is worth mentioning, that the nonprofit is the parent company of the for-profit subsidiary. And on that structure page that they have on their website, they say, because the board is still the board of a nonprofit, each director must perform their fiduciary duties in furtherance of its mission, safe AGI that is broadly beneficial. So I still think OpenAI is going to get the absolute fucking shit suit out of them. But it's important to mention that quirk.
Yeah, the movie about this is going to be so good.
The thing is, will that hold though? Like, that's like, you don't know what's in the agreement with the actual investors and Microsoft. That definitely supersedes anything that is posted on a public website. And like also this is unprecedented, right? Like it's very likely, I think, if this goes to litigation, that we could be seeing new case law, new precedent being set by what happens here.
Yeah, and as far as federal prosecutors are concerned, if they want to go after someone here, you're going to have to look at, are the prosecutors D-cells? Are they happy with the way this thing turned out? That's what seems quite possible.
How many years do you guys think before they make the movie on this?
TV movie, 18 months. Major feature, 4 years.
Yeah, it's gonna be way better than that Facebook movie.
Let's get some more speakers up here. What a crazy night. I'm just, my caps lock key is jammed. I'm just drinking Red Bull, mainlining the timeline on 3 phones right now. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah, I'm pretty bullish. I think like this is what Microsoft wanted. They always wished OpenAI to be in-house, so this is a big win for Microsoft. This is a big win for Sam. As someone who, I won't talk about my background, but I've done a similar move in big tech where there was internal fights of a very technical team with a big technical budget, and I just made a fork and started a new team closer to the founder, and did a very similar move, and it worked out pretty well. And definitely pisses off the old team quite a bit, because when you have a good thing going, you have a big daddy source of money from big tech. Like if you get closer to the source, then that's how you have a sort of upstream attack. Yeah, that's the best move I think Sam could have pulled off. It's much stronger than having to go out, on another tour and raise again. Now he'll be able to do whatever he wanted, his chip efforts and so on at Microsoft, and like it was said earlier, potentially even become CEO of a I don't know how much $1 trillion company, which is insane. That's a big upgrade from a $80 billion startup. So, the second law of Sam is that his power, he only ascends power gradients. And I think in this case, chaos was a ladder for both Satya, Sam, and definitely not for the EAs and D-cells who went full D-cell. I just don't see how, like very often in some of these organizations, there's just like low-key EAC builders that are not necessarily vocal. They just want to build, and for the philosophers to fuck off. And I just can't imagine them staying. And now you have like a big tech company that's going to have some like competitive lab. They're going to be able to attract talent. They have near infinite capital, and they can offer like liquid cash comp, which given that the profit participation units that OpenAI were handing out, well, now they're worth jack shit. People are going to prefer that liquidity over OpenAI, and so it's going to be like in terms of the talent war, because like OpenAI was kind of setting the prices for the market in terms of talent acquisition, which for the founders in the audience is very relevant. I think now it's going to be sort of bidding war between Microsoft and Google as kind of setting the price for sort of talent in the market. So it's going to be really interesting. Yeah, lots to process from tonight. For a second there, it seemed like Team Acceleration lost with a big D-cell being put in charge of our crown jewel. But yeah, I do think people should answer. Yeah, I think lawsuits should fly. I think there's a lot of shareholder value that was destroyed. I guess even though there's no precedent for this sort of legal structure, it doesn't matter. It's worth a shot. Like there's people who've lost significant amount of money and it had huge damage. So
lawsuits by Microsoft or by others?
fucking everyone. Everyone, like,
Because it seems like Microsoft is
yeah.
trying to play the polite game now, and says it seems like they are in good terms with like, hey, we'll collaborate with OpenAI, and we'll also have our advanced
no,
research
they're
team.
just gonna like farm
LPJ,
their
they're doing that for their own shareholders. They want
yeah.
like Satya is like a statesman, right? Like he wants to, and like a captain of a ship.
True,
like
yeah,
the
like they'll
Titanic,
always want
right?
to have good PR. You're right.
They're just gonna
Yeah,
vampire out the IP and the talent and just like leave like OpenAI, decel OpenAI as like a husk of its old self, and they're just gonna like, it's an old strategy of like in big tech. It's like you partner up with a startup, you get really close, you prop them up, and then you slowly absorb like either their network, their market share, right? Once you integrate products, what is it? It's like get close and then extinguish. It's like a whole strategy. I think Chris might remember.
Embrace,
probably just a PR
extend, extinguish.
There you
It's
go.
the Microsoft strategy.
And actually, something I
That's
noticed,
George.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing with OpenAI.
That's what they're doing right now
through a different mechanism.
Yep.
Yeah,
They-
something I
Until
noticed
now,
in
Microsoft
Salty's.
until now, Microsoft probably only wrapped the OpenAI weights into their products. But with Greg there and like actual OpenAI people there, they're going to be able to actually even train on top and make it even better. So it's possible that they could have more advanced models than OpenAI too.
I think that's possible too. And I just noticed as well, I think this is kind of obvious and we assume this, but I noticed in Satya's tweet, he actually said specifically, Sam Altman, Greg Brockman, and together with colleagues will be joining Microsoft. So it seems like they're already confirming that it's not just Greg and Sam, but other people from OpenAI as well that are actually joining.
Yeah, probably is the
It's
first
going to
time
be a
Microsoft
mass exodus from OpenAI. It's
Yeah,
happening
like
right now.
it's probably immediately at least a dozen people, I'm imagining, on the low end. Yeah. Oh, and Karpathy today he tweeted a nuclear before the Microsoft tweet. Karpathy tweeted like a nuclear radiation symbol or something when Emmett Shear was announced as the CEO. So that seems to me kind of like he's disapproving of Emmett Shear being the CEO, and he might, I don't know, he might move to the new research group at Microsoft. Hopefully.
I would imagine he does. I think it's like nuke from orbit, I guess. Like, I think people that were read in knew that something savage was going to come in for a little bit, and so they were expecting it. But it's definitely savage move. I mean, they're just gonna deflate OpenAI slowly but surely, just bleed it out and suck up all the blood, suck up all the like talent and market share and compute. I mean, they have the compute, so they have the leverage, right? They provide oxygen in terms of capital and compute to OpenAI, so they can kill it whenever it doesn't have any more utility to them, really. So
also, OpenAI is not going to be able to raise the money that they did prior for two reasons. One is Sam is an excellent fundraiser. Two is that well, I guess there's 3 points. Two is that the way that they're structuring the company, not to partner with companies like Microsoft, the big opportunities aren't going to be there anymore. And then three, it's just total like value destruction. VCs are not going to trust them. So like they're going to really have a hard time raising money. Even if the EA organizations give them money, which I assume will probably be the case going forward, it'll be a very, very small amount relative to what Sam was raising.
Even if it is a large amount, they don't have the talent anymore. And so they're going to, I think they will be outcompeted by the research group at Microsoft regardless, even if they do get a shit ton of funding.
EA just needs a few more SBFs to steal billions of dollars and funnel that money into OpenAI and Anthropic, right?
It worked for Anthropic.
It worked for Anthropic, exactly. I'm heading to bed. I just want to say, I know I said some bad things about OpenAI on Lex, and I realize now that Sam Altman was never the bad guy. It was the decels all along. It was the decel energy around the place. It was the fear mongering after GPT-2.
It's one of the things. Go ahead.
They go from writing spinning up in deep RL to saying GPT-2 is going to make fake news or something, and I'm like, you fucking kidding me? Like this is just just like I don't know. I like capitalists.
I
I
think
like
in a lot of ways,
communists,
like,
and yeah,
and thank you for being here, George, and good night.
sure, sure.
I think in a lot of ways, it's like no good deed goes unpunished. Sam sort of, almost nice to a fault, trying to mend fences, trying to extend the olive branch, trying to integrate AI safety into this org, and it ends up sort of eating him alive. Again, sort of being too nice can be a liability in this really cutthroat world. I've seen some of the biggest mistakes in business come from having compassion, having empathy, being a nice person. And here, sort of like postmortem, one of these things that, has emerged here. I think if Sam was a tougher, more ruthless person, maybe this could have stopped. But again, that's his personality. He's, from all people who have described him, he's really just a very nice, amazingly good person. And, that again seems to have backfired, which is a tragedy, I think.
Yeah. On that note with George, I'm gonna go to bed myself soon too, but I just want to read this quote again that I said earlier. And for the people in the back here, it's by Sam Altman. He said, quote, "I used to be annoyed at being the villain of the EAs until I met their heroes. And now I'm proud of it." End quote.
Sam Altman was the good guy all along.
If anybody has
Altman,
their last things to say tonight, please, I'll pass it around. Any final comments or thoughts?
Martin, thanks for hosting. Have a good night.
Yeah, good night. John, do you have anything?
I guess Martin, one comment, which is the kind of digesting after everything that's like transpired here, is that like this looks like an EA ploy that has destroyed potentially more value than what was destroyed with FTX. They did it through a different way that is unprecedented. But this seems to be a pattern, and I think this is going to this is going to push effective altruism back into the limelight in the mainstream media. People are going to be talking about it again, like they were with FTX. But this is unlike FTX was like typical fraud. This is totally new. And so I do wonder, I do think we're in uncharted territory here, and I do wonder what's going to happen. But the thing I'm currently thinking right now is that this is really just another failure of effective altruism. With a like a different shade of lipstick and a coat of paint.
Also, we shouldn't forget that Anthropic has the same board, the same 6-person effective altruist board that oversees Anthropic. So
Just to close out the policy conversation, we need to decentralize everything. We need to have open source. We need to turn back the tide of regulation that OpenAI, among many others, were pushing. And we need to fight that executive order. And the way to do that is to remember that AI is made of algorithms. Algorithms and code are speech, and speech is protected by the Constitution. Regulators should not get in the way.
Hell yes. That's right. I think the EAs were trying to centralize power in a few institutions and, co-opt those institutions, gain control, and then have like sort of state-mandated oligopoly that they control, right? And want to form a sort of cartel and oligopoly, and it was going to get really dark. I mean, they're still in a position to try to do that, but, depending on how Microsoft plays out. But really, we no longer have sort of a free OpenAI. OpenAI has been subverted and co-opted entirely. Now it's just Microsoft and Google, which, have been captured like every big tech player by the managerial class. And so we're still in a sort of vulnerable position with the future of AI right now. We can't celebrate too much. And so, there would be a possibility that, a coalition is formed between the big tech players and then they can decide to set the pace or set the prices for for AGI. And so it's really important that we, like Jim mentioned, fuel decentralized growth and make sure the control of the future of AI is decentralized so that it's fault tolerant, right? And we saw what a fault looks like this past few days. And so the mission remains really important, as important as ever. And we've had a graphic example of why it's so important. So this is just a new beginning, but what a historic weekend. I just came back from the Starship launch. It's been the craziest weekend in my recent memory.